666, three digits that have launched 1,000 horror movies, 1,000 conspiracy theories, and more nervous jokes about product barcodes than any other number in human history. Everyone knows it's the number of the beast. Almost no one has actually read the verse it comes from. Revelation 13:18 says this calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 6666. Notice what that verse actually asks you to do. It doesn't say, fear this number. It says, calculate it. The Greek word John uses there, saphizo, is a counting term. It's an instruction to do math, which means, from the very first sentence, this was never designed to be an emotional trigger. It was designed to be a puzzle with an answer. So what's the answer? Here's where almost every Christian gets it wrong in one direction or another. Let's walk through what the text actually supports and what it doesn't. First, what the number is not. It is not a barcode. It is not a social security number. It is not a microchip, a vaccine ingredient, or a specific piece of modern technology. None of those theories come from the text of Revelation itself. They come from people in every generation looking at their own moment in history and assuming they're the ones living in the final chapter. That's happened with Nero, with the Pope, with Hitler, with the Soviet Union, with the European Union, and now with digital payment systems. Every single one of those identifications was eventually proven wrong by the passage of time. That track record alone should make anyone pause before locking on to the next candidate. So what does the text actually point toward? The most historically grounded answer involves something called Gematria, an ancient practice, well attested in both Jewish and Greco-Roman culture, of assigning numerical values to letters and adding up the numbers in a name. Before Arabic numerals existed, letters did double duty as numbers. So a name could be calculated into a sum. When you take the name and title Nero Caesar and transliterate it into Hebrew letters, the numerical value adds up to exactly 666. This isn't a stretch invented by modern scholars. It's attested in ancient sources, and it explains a strange textual detail. Some very early manuscripts of Revelation give the number as 616 instead of 6666. That variant makes perfect sense if the number is tied to a name being spelled slightly differently in different regions, which is exactly what happens with Nero Caesar, depending on which Hebrew spelling convention you use. A symbolic number wouldn't have two versions like that. A calculated one would. Nero, for those unfamiliar, was the Roman emperor notorious for burning Christians as human torches and blaming them for the fire of Rome. If you were a persecuted believer in the first century, reading John's letter under Roman rule, the beast, pointing to Nero Caesar, wouldn't have been abstract prophecy. It would have been immediately, dangerously recognizable. Coded language for the very empire threatening your life, written in a way that could be understood by insiders without handing Roman authorities an explicit confession of treason. But here's what most people miss when they stop at Nero. The text doesn't only want you doing math. It also wants you doing theology. Look at the number itself. In the numerical patterns used throughout Revelation, 7 represents completeness. It's the number tied to God's finished creation, God's perfection. 6 falls short of 7. It's incompleteness, imperfection, a number reaching for completeness and never arriving. And this number isn't 6 once. It's 6, 6, 6. A triple repetition of falling short, intensifying the point with every repetition. The beast, whoever specifically stands behind it, is presented as a counterfeit of the divine, reaching for the authority of God and always landing one digit short. So which is it? A specific historical figure or a symbolic pattern of imperfection? Most serious scholars today would tell you it's both, and that's not a cop-out. It's how a lot of biblical prophecy actually works. The number likely had a real, calculable referent for its original readers: Nero, or the imperial system Nero represented. And at the same time, John chose a number whose symbolic properties reinforce the point theologically. The beast is always someone specific in its own generation, and it's always, at a deeper level, the same pattern: human power dressing itself up as ultimate authority, always falling short of the God it's imitating, which means the beast was never meant to be a one-time historical trivia answer, locked to the first century and irrelevant afterward. Every generation has faced its own version of a system demanding ultimate allegiance, backed by economic and political power, asking for a loyalty that belongs only to God. Revelation gave the first readers a name they could calculate. It gave every reader afterward a pattern they could recognize. What almost every Christian gets wrong is treating 6666 as a scavenger hunt for a future villain, scanning barcodes, watching politicians, waiting for someone to unveil a microchip. What the text actually asks is something less thrilling and more searching. Where, in your own life, in your own economy, in your own political moment, is something demanding the allegiance that belongs only to God and dressing itself up as divine while falling permanently short? The number was never really about predicting a person. It was about recognizing a pattern. And that pattern didn't end with Nero.